A hopeless core of motivation. We live in an age obsessed with motivation. Scroll through your feed and you'll find 1,000 voices telling you to dream bigger, push harder, believe more. And yet, beneath all the enthusiasm and energy, people are exhausted. Because what no one wants to admit is this: motivation, real motivation, doesn't begin with strength. It begins with hopelessness. That sounds offensive, doesn't it? Hopelessness and motivation. How could they possibly belong in the same sentence? But here is the truth. True motivation does not come from within you. It begins when you reach the end of yourself. The hopeless core is not your defeat. It is your foundation. It's not the enemy of your strength. It's the birthplace of it. Let me explain. Most people are running on temporary fuel, hype, applause, dopamine hits from fleeting accomplishments. But all of that dries up the moment you hit failure, betrayal, sickness, or silence. And when that moment comes, and it will come, you face the reality that you are not enough. You never were. And that moment of hopelessness is holy. Why? Because it's the place where all false strength dies. It's where your illusions are shattered. It is where pride has to kneel. And in that place, something deeper awakens. Something unshakable. Something eternal. When you no longer believe the lie that you can carry your whole life by your own hands, you're finally ready to be carried. The hopeless core of motivation is the confession that says, I can't do this without something greater than me. And that is not weakness. That is the beginning of wisdom. It's the doorway to a different kind of strength. Not the strength that boasts, but the strength that endures. Not the strength that flexes, but the one that stands when everything around it falls. Some of you have been striving for years. You've tried every technique, read every book, repeated every affirmation. Still, you're tired. Still, you're searching. Let me tell you why. Because you've been trying to build skyscrapers on sinking sand. The soul was never designed to be its own savior. Real motivation is not about hyping yourself up. It's about humbling yourself down. It's not about telling yourself you're a god. It's about remembering you're not one. And in that honesty, in that sacred desperation, in that hopeless cry, that's where real power begins. See, the hopeless core does not mean giving up. It means giving in to a power far beyond your own. It means admitting that your story is not sustained by your perfection, but by your purpose. That your value is not in your performance, but in your identity. An identity not earned, but received. You are not made to motivate yourself by mirrors and mantras. You were made to draw strength from truth. A truth that does not change with trends. A truth that holds you when nothing else can. A truth that says, you are not enough, but you were never meant to be. So stop trying to fight your way to greatness through your own will. Step into the kind of motivation that doesn't burn out. That's why many people quit, not because they didn't want success badly enough, but because they relied on a source that could never sustain them. They put their faith in their own hands, forgetting those hands were human, trembling and tired. The truth is, some of the most powerful transformations begin the moment a person says, I can't do this anymore. That statement is not weakness. It is the doorway to real strength, because only when the self ends can something greater begin. Only when pride steps aside can clarity step in. And only when you stop trying to carry everything can you finally be carried. Real motivation doesn't scream in the mirror or shout affirmations to the ceiling. It whispers in the darkness, after the fall, when there's nothing left to cling to but faith in something beyond the self. It breathes again in the ashes, when ego is gone, and what's left is a soul ready to be rebuilt on solid truth. That's when motivation becomes more than a mood or a mindset. It becomes a movement inside you, a quiet but steady fire that doesn't fade with failure. Because it was never lit by self, it was lit by surrender. And surrender is the most powerful posture a human can ever take. When the self ends, the real work begins, not because you've run out of strength, but because you've run out of illusions about where strength truly comes from. Hopelessness builds strength. Not the kind of strength you perform for others, but the kind that grows deep within, when everything comfortable, certain, and easy falls apart. Most people run from hopelessness, afraid of what it reveals, the lack of control, the silence after plans fail, the weight of being unable to fix what's broken. But that exact place, that raw, stripped-down space, is where the foundation of true strength is laid. It is in hopelessness that the noise dies down. You stop pretending. You stop performing. You stop relying on appearances, on energy, on optimism that you don't really feel. And in that stillness, you meet something real. Pain introduces you to your own limits, and that introduction is necessary. You realize that strength isn't about powering through everything without breaking. It's about discovering who you are when you do break, and still choosing to rise from the pieces. The world tells you to avoid weakness, to deny fear, to keep going no matter what. But the soul doesn't grow that way. It grows when it's stretched, when it's wounded, when it's brought to the very edge. And that's where hopelessness leads you, to the edge of yourself, to that lonely space where motivation is no longer a hype word, but a decision, a quiet, firm decision that you will stand even when there's no reason left to. Hopelessness teaches you to let go of what you thought you needed. It tears away false strength, temporary support, fragile confidence. It reveals the truth of who you are, and if you let it, it starts to rebuild you from the inside out. There's something powerful about walking through a storm with empty hands, knowing you have nothing left to offer but your willingness to take the next step. That's where real strength is born. Not in comfort, not in applause, not in control, but in surrender. Hopelessness doesn't make you powerless. It makes you honest. And from that honesty, from that complete unmasking, a kind of strength grows that nothing and no one can take away. You're not enough, and that's power. It confronts every message that tells you to look within for all the answers, every voice that insists you are complete on your own. But when the world becomes too heavy, when life throws pain that can't be solved by a strong mindset or positive talk, you realize that being enough was never the goal. The strength you need was never meant to come from you alone. There's freedom in accepting your limits. There's courage in saying, I can't do this without help. That kind of honesty opens the door to something greater than performance and pride. You stop trying to prove yourself. You stop measuring your worth by what you achieve. Instead, you begin to live from a place of purpose that isn't rooted in perfection, but in perseverance. Being not enough doesn't mean you're broken. It means you were never meant to carry the full weight of your life in isolation. It means you were designed to depend, to lean, to grow through connection, not to pretend you have it all together. And once you stop hiding behind the need to be flawless, you find your real power. A power that doesn't collapse when things go wrong, because it was never based on your image to begin with. It's in your moments of deepest weakness that your greatest strength is forged, not in the absence of struggle, but in the presence of grace. Not when you feel full, but when you feel empty, and still choose to rise. When you stop striving to be enough and start living from the truth that you are being carried by something greater, you discover a motivation that doesn't run dry. You were never meant to be enough. You were meant to be willing. Willing to keep walking. Willing to keep showing up. Willing to believe that even in your not-enoughness, there is purpose, there is strength, and there is victory. That's not weakness. That's power, the kind that endures, the kind that lasts, the kind that changes everything.